Okay, it is 3:32 p.m. on Thursday, May 14th, 2020. This is a regular meeting of the Augsburg Bridge and Port Authority. The meeting is now called to order. Mr. Lawrence, do you have any letters of communications?
We do, and I've asked Anne Marie, I think most of the board members haven't seen the letters and communications, but they're mostly news articles, and she's going to just pull them up one by one, and you can just take a quick look at the headline, and if we may scan those and get them out to you. That was, I believe that was the USA Today article. That was about 2 weeks ago, and they were just asking how toll facilities were doing on the border. That one was United suspending the flights. I think a number of you probably saw that, but that just kind of gave us a status back then of they were closing down the Chicago run so that we currently have one flight a day to Washington. And that article right there was asked, or I had just an interview, and we'd just been awarded the windmill project for Roaring Brook. So I gave an interview to the, I don't know if it was WWNY or the Watertown Times. This is an article that came from Canada, and basically it was telling how, and I got this from the Bridge and Tunnel people, that how a number of Canadians, I think it's close to 70 or 80%, just plan on staying in Canada through the summer. And they had graphs in there that show what they regularly do. So we can put together this just to see it, but I thought it really directly affects all the border bridge operations.
I think, didn't Prime Minister Trudeau state that the border will be closed for another month?
Yes, I heard that. I don't think I saw it officially, but I heard it through a number of people.
Through the end of May or June?
Through June, probably June 21st. June 21st was when it was supposed to be readdressed. And I believe now it's been, on the Canadian side anyway, they said they aren't opening the border until the 21st. Right. Thank you, Anne Marie.
Any questions or any comments on any of the letters of communication? If not, we move on to approval of the board minutes of April 20, 2020. Mr. King, have you had a chance to review those?
Yes, I reviewed and found them all to be in order, and I would move their approval.
Okay. Motion's been made to approve the minutes of April 20th and the second.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. They are approved. Okay, reports.
I'll handle some of that. I guess you probably had a chance to look at the income and expense reports. There's some in the narratives if anybody's got any questions on that. But in real time, in the real life anyway, this expense report is missing a number of things that, and it doesn't reflect. We were able to get some PPP money, and it kind of tells where we were going right into March. But as you know, that was the most turbulent time, and it doesn't reflect everything toward the end of the month with that. But there was nothing real significant because we really slowed down a lot of operations knowing what was going on. So as far as expenses and things like that went, everything was really tamped down. There are some highlights in the narrative. I don't seem to have that in front of me, but if anyone has any questions on that, when we can talk later in more detail. I know Chris had asked about what we were doing to revise and come up with a realistic budget based on current conditions. And we can talk about that. Chris, is this a time when you'd like to talk about that? We do, and I'm sorry too, we have Patricia Nisko with us. She's our new CFO. Chris, you met her, and Megan has. Dave and Frank haven't, I don't believe.
Nope.
So, Patty,
Patricia, welcome.
Thank you.
and I'm sorry, I should have done that right off the bat. I apologize. But Patty's here, Chris, and if you'd like to address that a little bit on a general of what you're looking for or what we can talk about, you're welcome to weigh in here right now if you like.
I'm really looking for, Steve, the kind of revised projection of income and expenses that will reflect the things that have changed so substantially in the past 60 days. And I think that kind of a projection would really help us as board members to understand and to play a constructive role, and that dealing with the old budget, it seems like an unreal thing, given how drastic the changes have been, both in expenses and income. And Patricia, I thought this would be a task which, if you and Steve were able to keep it within your capacities, because I know you're busy, but if you were able to go over the costs and projected income, that this would be just a whale of a immersion in the functions of the OBPA. And, building a budget is such an introduction to what's going on. So, Steve, tell me a little bit about what you think is possible, because given that you've got reduced staff and a lot of unknowns, there are probably some real limitations on actually doing a new budget.
Yeah, I think so. If it was up to me, and I think Patty and I have talked about this, but I would like to kind of go back to a simpler way of keeping the board informed and everybody informed, kind of on a high level. And as far as my knowledge with accounting and everything, I always found that a lot easier for me to understand, and I think Patty agrees with me. And with that, I don't think it's going to be a task, but I think too, I think we've got a couple templates that we can use, and we may be adding things, and with her guidance, we'd know where to put these, but get things a little more simplified to where we talk about just high level items when we're talking about the narrative for every board meeting. Just frankly, the numbers and everything that we have there, they aren't in a value to me, quite honestly, and we need to do something there. And I think that's what you were getting at, and we talked about, and we, not to mention, it's a good time with the CARES Act money coming in, and also the PPP money. That's a different income stream that we'll have to corral and put in the right buckets, and assign that to the different entities accordingly. So, Patty, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I agree. A simpler narrative is probably easier for everyone to understand, and then specific questions can be asked instead of getting so bogged down in a number that we never get past that number.
Yeah, did everybody hear Patty on that?
I did.
Okay, I just want to be sure, because it's important. I just want her to hear, what Chris was talking about, and then to get her feedback on that. So, anything more to add on that, Chris? But I think I understand what you're looking for.
Well, I think, Steve, that this is slightly in conflict with the kind of things that Joe Russo, a former CFO, talked about in terms of uh, trying to work from documents that you're already generating rather than generating a second document. And yet, this statement, with all its breakdowns in expense categories, for instance, is more than we need. I could use departmental totals, and it would
That's
be
what I was
probably
thinking.
satisfactory to me most of the time.
Right, and you know, if you were to use a strict interpretation of that that finance statement, and you saw those variances in there, if you were to say that we're running things accordingly in accounting, and you see those wide range of variances, we'd have a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah.
You know, in
And
other words, I want something where you see variances of, and they're all explainable, but you want them within a certain, a very close range. And if they're out of range, that's the whole, where you talk either way. You either say, we didn't do that expenditure this month, or it turned out that we were hit with something unexpected. And that's the kind of talk that I would like to see. But that's just me and what I'm used to. And I come from more of a construction background, so you deal with short-term budgets for maybe a year or a year and a half. And whenever you meet monthly or biweekly, you would, variances were very important because things happen so fast. And I don't see why that couldn't happen here.
well, this sounds really ideal to me, with the caveat that you know, we talk about our experience. My modest experience is looking over an accounting manual for town boards, and it requires that the town board periodically take a look at the uh, original documents and compare their understanding to the original document. So, for instance, if you're using a form that's not directly related to the financial statements, one that you generate that's easier for us to work with, at some point, probably I'd be interested in coming in and just spotting the financial statements and trying to tie my numbers back together. But I'm thinking once or twice a year as opposed to monthly.
Yes,
And I could
that would
do
be.
that outside of a meeting, and I'd be happy to invest time outside the meeting with that.
And I mean, to simplify it, I would like you to be able to connect the dots from the budget to the monthly progress on you know, what you see at the board meetings. But
Yeah.
it has to be something that you can take your original budget and still follow along, instead of having the statement that, oh, that don't pay any attention to that, it was all done wrong, or something
Yeah.
like that. And should we get into a position where a certain account or something's out of whack, then we do what we have to just on that area, just so that we're constantly correcting and going forward, so that everyone can follow kind of monthly where we're at.
Steve, this sounds very useful and very helpful. Do you have any sense of whether we're talking about having let's say a draft of this in a month or 2 months, or some sort of timetable that you think might work?
A month.
A month? Patty just said probably a month. And I've shown her a few things today in relation to that, and also explained what you were looking for, so she just have an idea there. And I think with the templates we have, we can modify them to some of them, they're 8 or 10 years old, but they really worked for me, and I think they worked for the board at the time. And I think that we can modify those. And when you got a roadmap like that, it's just we need to pick out and make sure we've got the right number plugged in there.
Sounds great.
One other thing, Chris, I did a lot of things on my own, kind of non-accounting stuff when I had to talk with we still are with the governor's office and with the division of budget.
Yep.
I showed Patty a 3-year projection, a 3-month projection, April, May, and June. And I kind of used that template. It didn't cover everything, but I wanted to have them get a feel of what we saw coming. And the chairman helped me with that. We kind of went through, and they seem to be pretty, I didn't get really questioned on my skills as far as being in accounting, but so I figured that's a plus. So anyway, I have shown her that and kind of explained where I thought we were going, and with those projections. And as you go right now, we're halfway through those, and so far I don't know about dollar for dollar, but we're pretty much in line with, especially with our revenue projections. We kind of hit all of those with our percentages and what would happen at the airport, what would happen at the bridge, and
Sure.
revenue in the industrial park. So I think she's got a kind of where we are and then where we need to go.
Excellent.
Steve, can
Sounds to me like a plan.
It's just not working.
Dave?
Yeah, I would just add that I know I would concur with Chris on this, being on the financial committee there. I know it was helpful for me to get some of the check register stuff in the beginning when the answers were unclear to me.
And
It cleared up
no
a
picture.
lot of muddy water for me, at least getting started. And so I appreciate that, but I don't think we need all that stuff. I agree that a much more high level than what we have here, and we'll go from there. So I just wanted to concur with Chris on that. Thank you, Chris, for leading that.
And there was discussion too, that we need to kind of tighten up our quarterly accounting, because we're doing the end of the year things right now, and we're finding that we're having to go back almost a half a year to get some items and get things cleared up that really should have been buttoned up quarterly. And so that's something that Patty's aware of, and so am I. So we'll try to be as tight as we can, kind of quarterly, and we can talk about other things that you might want maybe at a quarterly milepost in our budget.
I know one item we had talked about is,
Yeah.
we had 5 different components:
Okay.
the bridge and the port and the airport and the railroad and industrial park. I think as we move forward, we need to see the revenue and expenses spelled out a lot easier than in the past for each one of those. So we know if, we're going to have the big project at the port, so we're going to have generate a certain amount of income, a certain amount of expenses. And then we need to consider, what are we doing with profit that's left over? And I don't think we've ever really discussed that in the past, because we all know that it seemed to go one place. Well, I think now we need to look at, taking care of, let's say, buildings at the port that may need either a new roof or a new piece of equipment. So we should be using the money from what we generate at the port for the port, understanding that most of the money, the income from the bridge, we know where that goes. Not only does it go for improvement on the bridge, but we know it goes out to the airport. So we need to see that a little bit more clearly than we have in the past, so we can make other decisions that I think, makes it, we're more accountable on where the funds are coming from and where the board is hoping they go to. I don't think we've done that in the past. Chris?
Well, Sam, I think that makes sense to me. My reservation, my pause comes because when you don't have enough money to pay for one project, you end up taking it from another one, and so it might be a lot of analysis that you're not able to use for the roof at the port, let's say. But let's plan for success, eh?
Yes. Chris, can I just add something just to the landscape, the financial landscape out there? We've been awarded 2.4 million for the CARES Act money that is for operational expenses and payrolls and utilities out at the airport.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of look at that as, in a short term, taking care of a lot of expenses that otherwise would have to come from this side of the bridge and port. So my thought is this might be a period where we were able to build up a little bit in reserves. And it kind of goes to what the chairman talked about, that we might have a breathing room to get set up to when this, maybe we're on our feet and have projects that can keep it going, but also we could come back to a certain level where the airport is still a significant drain on us, especially with loans and mortgages, things like that. So what I'm hoping is that we can get a little stronger here and organized, and then hopefully everything can kind of take care of themselves, even at a smaller level. So
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to point out that I think that it does give us a break, the way I see it, that we can kind of take the expenses from the airport and keep them on their own.
Steve, is there any timetable that's required on the, you're on camera, Pat, so wave to folks. Steve, is there any timetable by which the CARES funds have to be dispersed?
No, and I know that once that money is in it, I can update you right now. That money and the grant is in the Delphi system, and tomorrow I can begin submitting for reimbursement. Probably I'll start with payroll.
Yep.
And the thing about this though is all approvals of all our expenses are not going to be done by the New York ADO with the FAA. They have to be sent to Washington. So that probably puts another layer, and maybe I don't know how that'll work, but it'll all be submitted locally, but it goes on to Washington for final approval before we see the money back in our account. And what I'm going for right now is all the payroll, the individual payrolls that we've done for the airport going back to January 20th. And that money has already been expended on behalf of the airport by, the other entities. So when we get that money back, that's our money to use on this side as we see fit. So
Good.
I think just to update you on that, I just got the notice today that we were set to go for reimbursement. So that is really good news.
Yes.
Dave, anything else? Megan?
No, thank you.
Any questions for Patty that you probably can't answer?
Sam, I
No?
need to leave. I talked to Steve for another meeting here in 4 minutes. So I just wanted to let you know that. I'm happy to do my report quickly if you'd like.
Now, John?
If that'd be okay with you.
Well, was there any other questions on the income and expense report?
No more from me.
Okay, let's jump down to the marketing, building and occupancy report. John, go ahead.
Yep, so I worked on a rather extensive FEMA grant application and for port security grant program. Been working with Steve and developed a budget and with a focus on internet security because that's their priority. And that was drafted and put together. And I believe it's around $300,000 for fencing upgrades, security cameras, gate improvements, and funds to rehabilitate one of the offices there for security and again, with a heavy emphasis on IT security. There was a few inquiries for salt, zinc, and wind projects that I referred. I had an interesting inquiry from a broker in New York City for office space, about 5,000 square feet. It turns out it's a GSA contract. I filed an expression of interest and notified them of our interest in submitting a formal offer, which they have. There's a pick and pack operation I've been working with. Been researching the airport grant, the larger one for $20 million, but it's been difficult because the notice of funding availability isn't out and nor is the application, but I've been doing some background work with the airport manager and the engineer. I've been talking with Steve about an application through the Northern Border Regional Commission. There's only $4.5 million for this commission, which runs from Maine all the way to Buffalo. It's pretty competitive, but I have an interesting prospect out of Canada that relates to COVID-19. There's a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't talk about it too much, but I've told them about this grant program and how we could assist them and facilitate the project here in Commerce Park. There's several lease renewals that are out there that'll be on your June agenda. And there's a very significant Economic Development Administration grant money in the billions of dollars through the CARES Act that I passed on to Steve for our discussion, and something that we would want to identify a project on and perhaps put an application in. There's no deadline on that one. It primarily deals with transportation and infrastructure. So we'll be talking about that this month and taking a look at it.
All right, John. Have we thought about looking at some of the medical equipment companies in the area, or maybe in Canada that might be interested in doing something in the future, since the big push across North America, you might as well say, is to bring back some of those manufacturing facilities in China to North America. Is there anything that you've run across lately in either, I don't know, somewhere in Ontario or maybe even in Quebec?
Well, I knew Leonard Lee, who ran Veritas Tools, who also went into medical supply. I've researched that one pretty heavily. He's no longer, he's passed, but his son is running the business now. And we do have a medical company now in the industrial park that deals with used medical equipment. He's well connected in British Columbia and owns multiple companies. I've talked to the company that's in the eastern part of St. Lawrence County, and they really didn't have an interest in the foreign trade zone. They don't like government assistance, and they do well by themselves. And we can market and target that. It's just a question of allocating the funds for it. So that'd be great if that could happen.
Okay. I think there's a little over 22,000 square feet available in the industrial park. Have any of the existing tenants expressed any desire in using additional space over there?
There's been general inquiries, nothing really solid at this time.
Okay. What about the piece of property out here. I know we talked about delaying it for a while. We were looking at, setting it up in June, weren't we?
Yeah, so I was just waiting for the bridge to reopen in case there are Canadian prospects that want to come down and take a look at it. So probably July, August.
You can't do that now, John?
No, if they go back, they have to self-quarantine for 2 weeks, and they aren't allowed. The only thing that's allowed is commercial traffic.
Okay. And again, as we mentioned earlier, the border will be closed for at least another month.
Right.
You know, I guess we'll have to put that off, and now we're looking at maybe sometime in July for maybe selling that land if anyone has any interest in it. But have you received anything from anybody, John? I mean, you know, some of us will just talk out there in the community about it being available. Have you heard any comments at all? John? Did we lose him?
It looks like we did.
Did it just disconnect or what happened? Anne Marie, you still there?
I'm still there, but he is no longer there, so it must have disconnected.
Just disconnected?
I guess so.
Okay,
He's not.
5 after 4, disconnected. Okay. Did anyone have any questions for John that we could get to him later? Anyone?
Yeah, I did actually have a question. I know maybe Steve can answer it. I don't know.
I'm sorry, Megan, I didn't hear you.
In April, we had 3 tenants in the Commerce Park ask for rent relief. Have we had more people or more tenants ask for relief, or are we kind of maintaining where we're at?
We had one company in the park. And I won't mention the name, but
Yeah.
they've asked for that. But they also are looking to expand. They're trying to reorganize based on the what's happening with the coronavirus and the pandemic, and they're hoping to bring some of their operations from Canada to expand. Trying to assist them with that, but also they were one of the companies that asked for a 3-month deferment, which we granted, and we asked to have that paid off at 1.5 times the monthly rent from August. And, nothing else other than that, Megan.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Okay. Let's move back to the bridge traffic report.
Everything there is actually, it's really been true to form all through April, as you can see on the auto crossings. I did see it did improve a little bit the 26th through May 2nd, and I really couldn't get into anything that accounted for that. If you see, if you have that, yeah, it's right there on the screen. I don't know if you can see all of that, but everything's been pretty consistent through the month. And ultimately, when you look at the revenue, that's compared to last year, I think we were down close to, well, you can see right there, probably 125,000 over last year. And I know with May, with Victoria Day, and then the holidays at the end, that's going to be there'll be a lot bigger for the month of May, because we do get a tremendous amount of Canadian traffic for, I think it'll be in another week, we'll be there. Is that Victoria Day, right? And then we even see that for our Memorial Day. So there should be I would expect there'll be a projected deficit there over last year, greater than 125. I would imagine it'd be somewhere 150 or 160, maybe more. So that's it puts a big dent in our revenue stream there. Any questions on the auto or the truck crossings? Okay.
Yeah, well, Albany is well aware of the members that Steve just relayed to the board. I think Steve had mentioned earlier, at least him and I talked about it. It's the same across the border, not just here, but the entire U.S.-Canadian border. Car traffic is way down. Truck traffic, I think, is running about where we are, Steve.
Yep. And then can you mention when I talked about empty miles? Remember, obviously, the
Oh,
BTO, so
yeah, some of the issue is trucks may come across loaded from Canada into the States, but then once they get here and unload, they have no cargo going back. So then who knows, where that truck may go, pick up a load, and obviously they're not coming back through our crossing or if at all. So that hurts. That's a change from what it's been in the past. And, it's just another decrease in our revenue and truck traffic. Again, Albany is aware of all this. They understand, not every state agency is in the same situation we are. They don't have a international border crossing when the border's closed. But there are some, like at Buffalo, what is it, Niagara Frontier Authority or whatever that's called. They're
Lewiston, Queenston, and Peaceford.
Yeah.
Lewiston, Queenston gets a lot.
But again, they're not an authority that has a port and an airport and a bridge and everything. So we're pretty unique. And we've been trying to drive that point home to Albany that we're not like any other authority or agency that they're dealing with. And I think based on our last conversation with what New York State is trying to do on our behalf in Washington, is let Washington know that we are unique up here. And I think that's to our benefit.
Yeah, well said. I just so you'll know, I didn't realize this, but the governor's chamber said that they have an office in Washington that's run by New York State that deals with international issues, and the border would be one of them. So they did ask for quite a bit of information 10 days ago that they wanted to relay to their office in Washington, so that they could do it on a different level than just right here in North Country or in Albany. So I was never aware of that. It was interesting, but I wanted to make sure that you're aware of that. So that's always a good thing. And yeah, I think that's that kind of covers a lot of that. Yep.
Any other questions on the bridge traffic report? Now we move on to the airport activity report. Which is where? Have I seen it?
Yeah.
Hello?
I don't
Yes.
have,
Hi, this is
Anne Marie,
Stephanie.
that
Can you hear me?
you?
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Hi. As far as the airport activity report goes, unfortunately, the airlines don't care about our deadline for the board meeting, so I did not get the numbers until late. So I have them. We had, in the month of April, 34 in-planed passengers and 50 deplaned passengers. In March of this year, we had 2,132 in-planed passengers and 2,640 deplaned passengers. Now, compared to April of last year, last April we had 2,952 in-planed passengers and 3,287 deplaned passengers. I worked from the TSA numbers, that I get with them. Nationally, yesterday, the TSA enplaned 163,205 passengers nationwide. Last year at this time, they enplaned 2.2 million. It's a 93% decrease across the United States.
Oh, feel bad.
Now, locally, for OGS, I get a report, a weekly report from the local TSA. From March 1st through the 7th of May, OGS has had a 95.7% decrease in in-plane passengers.
The car traffic.
Yeah. Stephanie, have you reached out to, I don't know if it's FAA or whoever it is, regarding the requirement for 10,000 employments threshold and $1 million?
I have not. However, talking to the industry folks, that is something that they are looking at to continue for 2021 to go by the 2019 numbers and not the 2020 numbers for next year for all airports. I don't know if that is passed yet or not.
Stephanie, you know what number are we at right now as of today for the whole year? Do you have a rough idea what that is?
As of today, I'm not sure. As of the end of March, we were at a little over 7,000
Oh,
passengers.
okay, that's not bad. Then you had a good first 3 months then.
We had a very good first 3 months.
And I believe you were informed by Allegiant, they're having 4 flights come in the rest of May, is that correct?
May and June. Monday was supposed to be their last flight until June 24th. They've added 4 flights between then and now. The 24th, the 28th, and the 31st of May and the 4th of June. They've added those flights.
Stephanie, how soon will you know those are confirmed? Like, are they filled to what they want to use for capacity and they can say this is definitely coming? Or is that something you won't know until, say, a week before on all those flights?
Probably less than a week before.
Okay.
Talking with Allegiant, they're doing their best to fill the flights, and they are doing a milk run. Sometimes they're coming from Florida to Syracuse to here, sometimes Florida here, Plattsburgh and back. I don't know that they're going to do all 3 places, but they're doing their best to fill that plane as much as possible to and from Florida from New York.
Well, Stephanie, when they come here on that loop, are they fueling here or somewhere else?
They generally fuel here.
I like that. I like that. You should send them a thank you note.
Actually, we've been working very well with Allegiant.
Yes, I remember that one conversation we had with a representative from Allegiant. Went very well. And we asked if demand increased, if they would send flights to meet demand, and they seemed pretty receptive to that.
They are.
They've been good. Now, SkyWest and United. What can you tell us about that?
Okay. SkyWest through United received the waiver from the Department of Transportation to decrease their flights from 2 destinations to 1 destination at every EAS airport that they have, and that's over 40. So we're not alone with that. They've done that with every airport. They are getting more passengers. Slowly, it's picking up. as you can see, in April, we barely had any flights or any passengers, and they've gone from 0 to maybe 3 passengers a flight to 7 or 8 a flight from what we can see right now. So slowly it is picking up. Through June 30th, they will be only flying the one flight 7 days a week to Washington, D.C. And we'll wait and see what happens after that. But they have only received a waiver through June 30th.
Okay,
But once again, it depends if passengers really want to fly. They'll fly the flights, but they might be empty.
right. Anything else regarding SkyWest at the terminal?
No, right now everything is going well. But as I said, they're doing one flight a day from to and from Washington, D.C.
Now, I think, I remember when they made the request to us regarding their rent. Was that information available at the last meeting?
I don't believe so. And yes, we granted them a 3-month reprieve on rent to be paid back at 1.5 times. And the payment will start coming in July.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions of Stephanie?
Yes, just a quick one. Do we have to rebid the essential air service at some point here?
Yes, October.
Okay.
No, I can't ask that question. Never mind. Anything else?
Thank you.
Megan, Chris? No? Stephanie, anything else to add?
No, other than I continue to work with the industry folks on what to do next. The 2 big issues are the safety measures at the airport, so people feel safe to come back. And the hot topic is, of course, health screening of passengers before they get on the flights. And
Right.
that, I think, is going to be a struggle.
I'm sorry, who does are they doing a temperature check? Is TSA doing that?
No, they are not. At present, at Ogdensburg, nothing is being done. It is not a TSA function right now. There are several legal issues with doing this. It would probably have to be mandated by Congress for the TSA to do this. And laws would have to be changed because at present, the only folks who can deny boarding of a passenger is the airline itself.
Okay, but actually, not our staff, but it will be MAPCO is still cleaning the facilities at the airport.
Absolutely, and they have been doing a fantastic job.
Good.
One gentleman in particular, Mr. Cutwell, has been there. He was working 7 days a week there for about 6 weeks. And he's done a fantastic job keeping everything clean and sanitized.
Good, thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, one more question. The Malls F is, where do we sit on that? Wasn't that a grant or?
We've received a grant for that. We are working with the contractor. At the meeting probably 6-8 weeks ago, the contractor had an issue with the way the lighting was to be installed near the runway itself, and he was to get back to McFarland Johnson to modify the design. As of last Friday, he had still not responded to McFarland Johnson. And they were going to reach out to him and see what the delay is, because now would be an ideal time to be doing that work close to the runway with only the one scheduled flight a day.
Is there someone you can reach out to regarding that, Stephanie?
Yes, I will be doing that tomorrow.
Good, good. Thank you. Anything else, Dave? Megan, you good?
Good, thank you.
Chris?
Oh, good.
Okay. No other questions? We'll move on to port activity report.
Basically, all April wasn't too bad for rail and as far as grain goes, and you can see in there that's due to the addition of Lansing and GSL. Lansing has brought a new product for us, which is the soy hull pellets, and then GSL has been doing canola meal, and we've had regularly, you'll see the ingredient has been pretty steady. We've got a number of rail cars in there, so it was an exceptional month as far as grain goes. And Dave would know more about what might be the reason for that, but I really couldn't, with so much going on, I really didn't have time to investigate that, why that was so. Dave, any comment on that?
Only speculation. I would bet it's just ingredient pricing. And it's interesting with the pandemic, for instance, the soy crush is down, so soy hulls have gotten tight. So people were probably looking less demand for soy oil and biodiesel, and people's cooking habits change. So soy hulls have gotten tight. So that would be my guess. And canola
Okay.
likewise would be a similar thing.
So pricing had something to do with some of this then?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. That talks about the grain. Just looking ahead, we've had some discussions with two salt companies, and one is by vessel, and then the other one is by rail. And we're working on, we haven't nailed anything down, but we've let them know that we're available and that we can work with the customer to try to meet their needs to get some of that salt traffic and storage back. So I can't really say on how promising it looks, but we've definitely been reaching out and doing everything we can to attract them. We may see a U.S. Navy ship that's coming out from Wisconsin, a brand new one. They're just looking, and they may be docking for a day or two, but the Navy has been talking to us about that, and that would be sometime in June. Talking about the wind turbine project, the Roaring Brook project, we've got two vessels, and it looks right now like they're back to back around the 25th of May. One's called the MV Industrial Strength, and the other one is the MV Hilka. And one will be bringing blades, and the other will be bringing nacelles and hubs. And we'll offload those. They'll probably be a day each, and then we'll store them. And some of those may be going out in late June, is what I'm told. And then when July and August roll around, we should be seeing somewhere between 4 and 6 vessels bringing more blades and towers for the Roaring Brook project. I think there's 25 units. I'm not quite, I think 25 units there that we'll store and we'll ship out. And that should be, I think the completion of that is the end of September. That's a big one for us. And we're in good shape, I think, for cash flow, that we can handle the cranes this year and be able to pay everybody on time. So we're making plans for that, and I believe too that vendor will be paying in 45 days. So I think we can make that work. I will talk with Patty and get her opinion on how we should to be able to finance payrolls and the equipment there. But I think, given that, I think we can do that. I think I got everything. Yeah, I think that's, and Mr. King, I also, we had a discussion with the person that you mentioned there, and they seemed very interested, and it had a lot to do with understanding how the rail was going to work, but the amounts that he's talking about would be a pretty good project, but right now it's just really tentative. But Adam addressed everything there this afternoon, and he wanted to he told me to tell you that they will be talking later on. Adam's going to check some few things that he has on his end and get back to that person. Okay, I think that's all I've got.
Any questions for Steve on any port related?
No.
Dave, you're good?
I'm good.
Chris?
All's well.
Excellent. John's done the building occupancy report and the industrial commercial prospect report. And I believe there's no unfinished business. Is that right, Steve?
Correct.
Okay, let's move right into business items. General administration.
Agenda item A1 is approval of signature authorization for Tompkins Trust. You've seen this before, that we had to do this so that I had access to the Tompkins Trust account. This is so that we can update the signature authorizations, and it lists Stephen J. Lawrence, interim executive director, and Patricia Nesco, chief financial officer, and we need following persons need to be access.
Okay, someone have a phone by their computer or something is providing feedback back. Okay. Any questions of Steve on this resolution? If not, is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Megan, second.
Second.
Dave?
Yep.
Anne Marie, you still there?
Yes.
Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Item A2.
Item A2 is required. I think if you recall, you authorized the appointment of the executive director to the health and welfare plan for the ILA pension fund, or excuse me, the health and welfare plan, but we forgot to insert in that the pension fund. They're two different funds, and the resolution that we had before only covered the health and welfare plan, and we need a resolution that also covers the pension fund plan as a trustee. So what you see before you is just adding me as the interim executive director to be appointed as a trustee to the health and welfare plan and pension fund, having 2 votes respectively in the administration of the plans to ensure equal voting authority. As part of the obligation, insurance will be purchased for no cost not to exceed $5,000 to protect the authority and its trustee from any and all claims associated with the administration of the health and welfare plan and pension fund.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Not Anne Marie, call the roll.
Mr. Coffin,
Yes.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Whitten,
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Item A3.
Three, under authorization to add Patricia Nisko, CFO, to the Community Bank Airport parking lot account. Currently, I have that along with three other individuals that you see there from MAPCO. So we'd like to have this passed to authorize Patricia Nisko to sign checks at the Augsburg Airport Community Bank.
Any questions? The motion?
I'll move it.
No. Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Not Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Whitten,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Coffin.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, let's do A4.
A4 is approval of signature authorizations for Community Bank and Key Bank. Update signature authorizations for Community Bank and Key Bank. Following persons be authorized to sign checks for the Augsburg Bridge and Port Authority. Vernon D. Burns, board member. Megan J.M. Whitten, board member. Christopher B.T. Coffin, board member. Stephen J. Lawrence, interim executive director, and Patricia A. Nisko, chief financial officer.
Any questions? Motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Chris, second?
I'll second.
Second by Megan. Any further discussion? Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Ms. Whitten,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Coffin,
Yes.
Mr. Burns.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Then to item A5.
A5 is the approval of independent auditor agreement. EFPR Group CPAs proposes to provide financial statement audit and related services to the Augsburg Bridge and Port Authority and the Augsburg Border Station, as well as services associated with the audit of the passenger facilities charge PFC program associated with the Augsburg International Airport. EFPR Group CPAs have submitted proposals to continue providing the service for each entity for the year ending March 31st, 2020. The annual proposed cost for the year ending March 31st, 2020 is $19,600 for the Augsburg Bridge and Port Authority, $4,800 for the Augsburg Border Station, and $1,300 for the PFC program audit.
Frank, will this be the last year for the border station?
No,
No?
no, we haven't got the Attorney General's okay. I need Patricia to call me last time. I know she knew, so we can discuss what the AG's requesting of the authority. She can get my cell phone number.
Is that related to the conversation you had with the Watertown Attorney General's office?
Multiple times. We
Multiple
tried,
times, okay. So it hasn't stopped.
they turned us down twice. And I got to discuss with the chief financial officer how we resolve their issue, which is to tell them that we really don't have anything. The Augsburg Border Station is actually just a shell. Even though if you look at the paper, it looks like it's got lots of assets, the way the audit does. So I was thinking about, once I discuss with our CFO, maybe some sort of an affidavit explaining the accounting process. And I'd like to discuss it with her because I'm sure she hasn't seen it. And I know she got more on her plate than she needs right now than a headache.
Frank, I haven't brought that up with her, but I'll give her some background on that.
You don't want to frighten her
I'm
off.
glad I asked the question. Any additional questions on this contract with EFPR?
No.
Just as a matter of information, do you have any idea how these fees compare with last year?
I think they're only, Chris, I did look into that. I don't think they're a whole lot. I want to say within $2,000 on the main one. I want to say it's less than that. I did look at it, but to be honest with you, I can't tell you, but it wasn't, that was the first thing I did was compare the quote from last year to this year, and it was not out of line. I think it was up a little bit, but nothing unusual.
Yeah, I was looking at that too, Steve, and I think they're each up by a few $100s.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Yes.
Thanks, Anne Marie.
I don't find
Any
that
further
at all
questions?
troubling.
Any additional questions?
Yep.
No? Now, is there a motion to accept?
I'll make the motion to accept.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay, agenda item A6.
Agenda item A6 and A7 have to do with engineering costs for the Racket River Rail. One's for the Racket River. We'll talk about A6 first. It's the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority with funding from New York State DOT proposes to rehabilitate the New York and Ogdensburg Railway Bridge 80 to support 286 KIP and 315 KIP live loads at 10, 25, and 40 miles per hour. The authority has requested VHP prepare an amendment for an additional design work not included in the original contract and a budget proposal to perform construction administration service through contractor procurement for strengthening of this bridges 80 at the additional cost of $121,073.23. I just want to give you a little background. This work was approved back in June and July of last year, and it never had a resolution or anything that went through the board. This was, we had not been paying VHB for the work they've done. This work is reimbursable, but we did not have the cash flow to pay them off and wait from the state to keep going on the project. So we've been on hold basically because we haven't been able to pay the engineer. I want to bring that up front. But also, when I took over, whenever I dealt with them, and they said that there was additional work that had been done on both bridges that had been approved. And I looked into it, and there were signatures on there. The work has been done, no question about it, but it wasn't brought before the board as a resolution. So what you see here is the amendment to get things back on track. I believe most of this money, other than our share, is reimbursable. But as you can see, if we'd had the cash flow to pay that and then wait for the state to reimburse us, we'd probably be moving forward on this. I'm hoping to get moving. We have made some payments toward that to let them know that we want to get started, and I've tried to reestablish our relationship with them so that we can move forward. This is very important to the whole rail, our rail line, and it's been it does hurt efficiencies when we don't have the bridges up to match the tracks that we have. So we're trying to get this off the ground to get it bid and get going on some of that work so that we could get it completed by April or May of next year. So I just wanted the board to know kind of what the landscape looked like with that project.
I got a question.
Were
In the
flagged by
resolution,
a few years ago, and we were pretty much mandated to get them repaired. I think now the speed over those bridges are what, 10?
Yes.
10, and with the repairs done, it can go up to 40, so that is quite a difference.
And to cross the bridges, they need, when we have heavier loads, we have to have spacer cars. So that adds cost to bringing them in. They can't put them back. So when we were hauling nacelles, they had to have them in those whole trains in a configuration that would allow them to cross our bridges safely. Yeah, somebody had a question, I think. I might have interrupted.
Steve, I don't have access to what you're seeing. On the resolution, on the first one, it's at the top it says Bridge 80, and at the bottom in the resolution section says Bridge 40.
Okay.
That might have been corrected. I don't know.
40, yep.
The racket is 80, so that is incorrect. We'll correct that. Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.
So the first one, 6 should be 80.
And
Okay, I
then,
just fixed it.
You fixed it?
Yep.
Yep.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
thank you.
40.
Yeah, so the bottom and the
Okay.
rest.
Thank you, Frank. Good eyes.
Okay.
Any discussion? I'm sorry, any questions? None, is there a motion?
Make that motion.
Made, second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. Coffin,
Yes.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Whitney,
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, let's move on to A7.
A7 is approval of amendment of the original contract with VHB Engineering for the Grass River Rail Bridge 40. The Augsburg Bridge and Port Authority, with funding from New York State Department of Transportation, proposes to rehabilitate the New York and Augsburg Railway Company Bridge 40 to support 286 KIP and 315 KIP live load at 10, 25, and 40 miles an hour. The authority has requested VHB prepare an amendment for additional design work not included in the original contract and a budget proposal to perform construction administration services through contractor procurement for the strengthening of the bridges 40 at an additional cost $111,543.05. The same explanation goes for this as they did for Rail Bridge 80.
Any questions? Their motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Whitney,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Coffin.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Any other such matters?
The other such matters would be the bids that were received yesterday. How do you want to address them?
That's public knowledge.
yes, the bids are public knowledge.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about it. Does everyone have these,
Yeah, Anne Marie sent you other such matters, and in that was a agenda item B1, approval of a contract with Piasecki Steel Corporation. It probably, I don't like to, the bids were open for the bridge project yesterday,
this is part of the Tiger Grant?
part of the Tiger Grant, and timing and deadlines are really getting important, especially as they relate to the Tiger Grant funding. And I would have loved to given more time to and had discussions on this, but I felt that if Greenman Peterson could review the bids, there was only 2 of them, and give their weigh in on approval and of that, I thought it would be in our interest to get that before the board tonight and see if approval was for that was available. So I really would like to talk about this a little more. So if I don't know, has everybody had a chance to review this?
I've reviewed it, and it seems to me that we've discussed the Tiger Grant and our intentions to do this work in the past. And I know that we don't have numbers in front of us in terms of having the OBPA's share of this increase. But Steve, in light of your proposal here, and I think the importance of this work, it seems to me as if we just go forward.
Yes. Well, one thing with that, Chris, and you see in there, there's just let me summarize it. Piasecki Steel was the low bidder at $19,100,000, and then Abi and Svoboda out of Minnesota came in at $27,061,025. Piasecki was roughly 10.83% higher, and while that's a lot of money in the way projects are bid, 10% isn't way out of line. It's reasonable because you go with engineering estimates when you do this, and all of this was our engineer estimates were put together before the pandemic and the COVID-19 issues that came out of that. So you could argue that the uncertainty that has been brought about with the current environment factored into that there's a number of things there that they could look at it and say, well, what if we get in there and we start renting a lot of equipment and then all of a sudden there's a second wave and we're shut down. I would have liked to see more bidders so that you have more to compare it to, but there was a lot of, I think there was a lot of uncertainty in those numbers, but even so, the numbers aren't that bad. The one thing that comes of this is to find that extra money. I'm working with the New York State Department of Transportation, and they kind of indicated that if we, I'll say it bluntly, if we want to abandon the idea of the port expansion project, they might be able to reprogram some of that money. This is I'm talking publicly here, but it comes down to choices in our priorities, and then with timing and everything, that if they can look into that and we're agreeable to that, and please understand, the DOT in no way is trying to influence what we do here. We were just talking about things, and they, I don't want you to think that anybody in any way is trying to influence us. We're on our own as far as our choices, but the board needs to know that should we say you could reprogram some of that money, and that in effect would stop the port expansion project, then we could go ahead. I believe that we could get some help there, but that isn't a guarantee either. But I wanted you to know that that's kind of the lay of the land right now. And if we were to just keep things as they are and try to go out to look for that extra money, the time of it may jeopardize our Tiger grant funding. So I kind of want you to know that that's kind of how we're trying to approach this. So I really need a lot of your feedback on how you all feel about that. Sam, you want to go first?
Well, I can go first, but I think you know how I feel about it. We have one berth at the port now that's providing income for us. Would it be nice to have a second berth? Sure, but we don't need it to function down there. Where if we don't make repairs to the International Bridge, that's our bread and butter. And I would rather put the money toward the bridge than a nice package down at the port. So I don't have a problem with us relaying to New York State DOT that our preference is the International Bridge. Megan?
Yeah, Sam, I'd agree. It's a situation of nice to have versus need to have. I mean, the bridge is really getting to be a situation that we have to think about safety, and unfortunately, I think if we've got to put money somewhere, I'm all for the port expansion. I mean, I would love it, but if push comes to shove, I think we have to think about the necessities here, especially now.
Absolutely. Chris?
I think we've got our priorities, and the bridge is a higher priority than the second berth. It'd be nice if we can come back to that at some point, because I think that there really is a lot of governmental interest in getting that port expanded and stronger. And I'd like to pursue it, but clearly, maintenance of the bridge is the first priority, I think.
Dave?
I think Megan and Chris covered it okay. I would agree with those comments.
Hey, you want the motion passed, right?
Yes, you'll see three things in this resolution. We would approve it, but also it would be conditional on whether New York State and I think New York State on their behalf approves it for the Federal Highway Administration. But also I put in there that it would be contingent on receiving the additional funding. So there's really three things in there that have to all, and I don't worry so much about the DOT or the Federal Highway, but the big thing is to nail down that additional funding. So, but they're all covered in the resolution that it's basically contingent on that. Plus getting our resolution passed and in the whole package to present to them so quickly will show that we're extremely interested in getting this going forward. And I know Watertown and Albany have been very supportive in this. They've really done a great job with us. And also, this is the first time I've really worked with the FHWA, and they've been very helpful. Chris, just so you'll know, all of this funding wouldn't, our share in this whole thing will come at a later date when we have to fund some work on the Canadian side. So really all the finances here, and this is where New York State stepped up, they took care of our share of the Tiger grant funding. So this whole project And if they're able to bring some extra funding and it goes, the whole project is funded through the federal government and the state of New York. And that's the kind of projects we like. But the state of New York has really stepped up in the DOT to help us with that. And at this time, it's very crucial that we get that.
Frank, have you had a chance to look over the resolution?
Yes. Steve, any chance they can allot more money than what we are asking for from the port project to the bridge repairs?
Well, we've talked about that, and I got to be careful. They know what we need, so I can't play possum with any of that. So, but I will say that maybe we could get something that could help the port, even at a minimal. I know there's a need for some equipment down there. We have a grant, and we do have a share that's our ask of that. I would be more than happy, and it's not a lot of money, but if the state would help us with that share there, I would settle for that, and then they take back the remainder to reprogram somewhere else. But that's kind of my thought, Frank.
Well, I guess as long as we get to 1.86 mil, so we can complete the bridge project, that's number one priority.
Yeah.
Okay. So in your opinion, Frank, the resolution is in order?
Is in order? Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions?
One
Sure.
thing, Mick. If you've got any questions on that, I did include the approval letter from GPI, and they deal with every part of the bid analysis for the winning bid. So some questions you may have may be asked or answered in that letter.
Okay, you have the resolution before you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? If not, Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Ms. Whitney,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Coffin,
Yes.
Mr. Burns,
Yes,
motion carried.
thank you. Anything else, Mr. Lawrence?
Not that I have, unless you have anything.
The next meeting date,
Oh, sorry.
Next meeting date? It's tentatively proposed for Thursday, June 11th at 3:30. That work?
I'm not sure I'll make it at 3:30 on that day.
Need another date or later time?
A later time would probably be better, or another date, either way.
Dave?
That date works, whatever time.
Chris?
That sounds fine to me.
So if, will 5 o'clock work for you, Megan?
5 o'clock is fine, yep.
Is that okay with everyone else?
Yep.
Sure.
All right, so we're looking at 5 p.m. on Thursday, June 11th. Okay, anything else? Anything from anyone? No? Patty, any closed thoughts? Now that you have,
And through your first.
yeah, the board in
Trial by
front of
fire.
you and the attorney
And everyone,
and everyone, yeah.
I'm glad to be here.
And we're glad you're here.
Just in time.
Just so you know, if you ever make a mistake, we're gonna blame it on Megan.
Thanks. Got a long list of things they blame on me, Patty. It's fine.
You don't have anything for executive session?
No,
I
not
don't
right
even
now.
know how we do that with this.
No, no.
Anyone have any concluding comments or anything at all? No, if not, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, opposed? It is 5:03, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Have a good day, folks.
You
Thank
too.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.